Hi and welcome to the 10th in the series of user guides for Dronedesk. So we've covered just about the entirety of the system except managing jobs. So we'll dive into that now. So I've already created 3 jobs in the system and we'll just pick one of these. And in the drop-down menu, you'll find menu item Manage Job. And this will take you to the job management screen. At the top of the screen we can see the job status and the next action due date, and then you'll see a series of expandable tabs that cover everything that you'll possibly need to do with any job. So let's run through each of the tabs in detail. You can watch this video end to end in its entirety, or I'll provide individual links to specific time points in the video from each of these sections. If you get stuck at any point, you can always refer to the video. So the first tab is job details, and this is pre-populated and not something that you can modify in this screen. We have some basic information about the job which you've previously entered. Then there's a section covering the client details, so this will reflect the information that you have entered for the specific client you've selected for this job. And then job location, which again relates to the specific location that you've selected for this job. If you need to edit any of these, then you'll need to go back to the job location record and edit that. Same for the client. And then lead pilot and primary RPAS, again, based on the records that you've selected to be associated with this job. You'll notice at the bottom right of each one of these tabs, there's a print button. So if I just click that one, this will allow you to print the individual section of the job page with all the information that was displayed. And obviously, depending on your browser and your system setup, then you can also save the document as a PDF. Okay, so that's pre-filled job details. If you need to edit any of that information, then you'll need to do it in the client record, job location, lead pilot, or drone record. The next section, we get into the pre-deployment. So these are, in all likelihood, all the things that you'll need to do prior to arriving on site to do the actual job. So there's initial survey, notifications, which will be a list of people or bodies that you need to advise or get permission from prior to your flight. Flyaway Airspace users, that will be a view of your potential flyaway radius based on the drone that you've selected for this job, and it will include all other airspace users along with where we've got the data available, the contact information for those users. Weather forecast, at the moment that comes from MetCheck. That may change in the future. I'm looking at alternative weather providers to provide a forecast that we'll be able to store in the database so we can have a snapshot of what the weather was like when you created the job pack. NOTAMS, that will list all the NOTAMS within, again, your flyaway radius. Site plan will allow you to draw a map of what you intend to do on site. And then loading checklist is to make sure that you've got everything you need before you set off to go to the job. So let's just run through each of those in a bit of detail. Initial survey, this gives you the opportunity to, having looked at the site on the map, make notes about various aspects that you need to consider for the job. So ground hazards, terrain, and so on. Each one just has a little pop-up when you hover over the form field to give you a bit more information about what you ought to be thinking about entering in here. I mean, it's not prescriptive, it's up to you. So you just go ahead and fill in the form with the relevant information. You'll notice that each of the fields has a character count, so you have up to 400 characters to complete each of the fields. If there's anything else that you need to cover, then use the other notes field. And then the final thing you need to complete here is the airspace classification. If you're in any doubt at all about airspace classification, then you can click the link and pop over to the NAT site, and that will give you an introduction to airspace. This classification memo is pretty useful. Okay, so we'll say we're in G, uncontrolled airspace, for this particular job, which is great. As you go along, the form last updated time will update as you enter any notes. So you'll always have an indication of when the last update was made. Okay, so that's the pre-deployment survey completed. Notifications, here you'll list anybody that you need to notify about the flight. In this particular case, there's no ATZ or anything nearby, so that's fine. We just need to mention the fact that the client is the landowner and select the date that we notified them, which, well, let's say is today. Okay, so that information, that notification will be retained on the job. You can add a row, fairly obviously by clicking Add Row. That'll create a new record for you, and you can similarly delete rows if you don't want them anymore. So we'll just keep it at 1 row for this. Okay, so that's notifications. So Flyaway Airspace users is particularly useful and maybe something that actually you look at before the initial survey and notifications. So let's expand that. So what you'll see is a map centered on the job location, along with a circle drawn to represent the flyaway radius of the drone that you've selected as that's going to be flying the job. And then within that flyaway radius, the application has picked out all the potential other air users in the area that you might need to contact. So you can see we've got race courses where there's likely to be helipads. So that should be shown with the helicopter and icon of the horse. It tells you the distance to that location and the bearing. We have hotels with helipad. We have air ambulance. So this is Midlands Air Ambulance, 18 miles to the west. Another air ambulance up to the north there, which is based, that's the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance. So you'll notice we've got the FRZs on the map as well, along with the runway protection zones. And if you click on those, it'll give you some details, including the contact information. Likewise on the runway protection zone. Okay, there are also glider sites. So that's Bidford. There's another one here, which is Shennington. Another one there. Quite a lot of gliding going on around here, which is cool. And then this is Wellswood FRZ. You'll also find private airfields listed, as well as hand gliding sites. So you can see there's a tremendous amount of detail on here about potential other air users that you need to be worried about. You might have noticed the warning come up when I try and scroll the screen. So if I want to zoom in on the map, you need to hold, if you're doing it with your mouse scroller, then you need to hold Control on the keyboard and scroll in and zoom in. Okay, so assuming we're happy with that, then if you scroll further down, there'll be a tabular representation of all the information that's on that map. So we can see the race courses, the flying clubs, and so on. If it's a listed airport, then it'll have the ICAO code, and it will have phone numbers for whatever phone numbers are available actually in AIS, along with a frequency if you're going to be using radios. So in this case for Wellesbourne, Mountford, we've got an administration number and a number for the tower. If we scroll a bit further down, we've got Gloucestershire Airport, EGPJ, and again we've got Ops and ATC numbers and an admin number. So if you don't get a reply from ATC, then you've always got the admin number to fall back to. So these are all the numbers that are listed in NATS. There is a disclaimer, errors and omissions accepted. We can't guarantee that user contact data is 100% complete. Despite how hard I've tried to source accurate and complete information, I can't guarantee it because I can't guarantee the accuracy of the source data. So if you're aware of a site that's not listed, then please let me know. Just drop me an email. I can add it to the database for the benefit of all the other users. Again, you can see the print button. Let me just quickly show you what that will look like. So you get a nice clear printout of the map, the air users, and all the contact information, which is useful to take to site if you need to. Okay, so that just about covers air user data. Let's close that, minimize that section. So the next section is weather forecast. So as you open this tab, the application will go off and fetch the latest available forecast from MetCheck and present you a table like this. So the closer you get to the job date, the more detailed the information will be. So you'll get an hourly forecast. At the moment, because we're out to Monday next week, it's showing a 3-hourly forecast. So you can see temperature, rain, likelihood percentage, the cloud cover, the direction of the wind and the speed, potential gust speed as well, along with UV index and relative humidity. And then there's a animated representation of the weather. On the far right hand side, you'll see for each, in this case, a 3-hourly slot or the hourly slot on the more accurate forecasts, there's an indication as to whether or not it's likely to be safe to fly based on the wind speed, the rain percentage, and the temperature. So in this case, we can see right up until about 9 AM, it's likely to be too windy, or it might be risky to fly. So you can see gusts over 6 miles an hour. So that's green. When we get to 1 o'clock, gusts are getting up towards 17 miles an hour, so that's shown as amber. But between the hours of 10 and 1, it's likely to be fine in terms of wind. And then precipitation is, well, you can see broadly 0% across the day, so that's not going to cause a problem for you flying, and neither is the temperature. So this will give you a quick visual indication as to whether or not there is any risk in terms of weather to flying on the particular date that you have in mind for the job. You also get sunset and sunrise time, so rise at 6:55, set at 21:24. So if you're not approved for night flight in your ops manual, then you need to bear that in mind. There's a copyright notice at the bottom. The weather data comes from MetCheck, as I said. I might consider a move to an alternative service like the Met Office and/or Dark Skies, and that will give me the opportunity of saving this data. So at the moment, each time you open this tab, it'll go and fetch the weather afresh. In the future, I'd like that to be stored in the database so you can see the weather at the time you looked at it, or at the time you demanded a refresh, and then store it against the job so you can look back at what the weather was when you checked it. And then you can there's a link to the full MetCheck weather forecast should you want to go and double check. Okay, so that's weather. The next section is NOTAMS. So there are a number of sources of NOTAM information on the web, none of which are particularly easy to locate or navigate. So this provides a quick and easy view of NOTAMs in the area that you're going to be flying. So again, they're limited to the 24-mile radius of the job location. They're listed in order of potential impact as opposed to distance. So you can see the NOTAM reference. We've also got the full Q code at the bottom right if you're interested in that. And then the NOTAM type. So in this case, it's a restriction because of a horse jumping event where there's no flying within a 2 nautical mile radius of position 520607 Banbury. If you want to see that location on the map, click on the map and you can see exactly where it's going to be along with the details of the NOTAM itself. Okay, so the next one is a warning. So searchlight display within 1 nautical mile radius, Gaydon. So I suspect that's not going to be of any interest to you. So what you can do, if you don't want to see this NOTAM in your printout, you can click the hide this NOTAM button. That will remove it from the list after you've confirmed. Okay, and you can see it's now gone. If you refresh the screen, that will reappear at the moment, which is probably not desirable. So in the future, on my to-do list is the option to remove it, and it will be permanently removed. So even if you refresh this screen, that NOTAM won't appear again. Okay, so we can see some of these are expired actually, so we can hide some more of these gliding competitions. Okay, and you can scroll down, you can see that nothing is excluded. Okay, so I don't want to exclude stuff based on my logic. I want you to be able to exclude stuff based on your knowledge and experience and understanding of the NOTAM impact on your job. So it might seem that there's an awful lot of information here, but you are able to remove superfluous notifications if you want to. The less important ones will obviously be at the bottom, so things like lighting facilities, clearly not of consequence to your flight. So as with all things aviation, there are a number of abbreviations that you'll find in the NOTAMs. There's an abbreviation help form here, so if there's an abbreviation that you don't understand or don't recognize, then you can start typing. It'll present a list of matches, click on the one you're interested in, and it'll give you a definition. You'll also notice there's a request NOTAM. Now, and there's a note at the bottom actually that confirms this. As of 28th of June, notifications are not required for any flights below 400 foot. But if you're advised by an ATC to request a NOTAM, you'll need to send an email to them or ring them up. So there is the number there. They can advise you. What they might ask you to do is send an email requesting the NOTAM. This allows you to do that quickly and easily. Click the request NOTAM. The window will open pre-filled with all the information that's available. So you'll need the company and the operator name, the email address, phone number, and the details along with the center point, radius of operation, and so on. The job reference is always useful, and you might want to add some detail about what you're going to be doing on site. So click preview. It'll give you a preview of what the email will look like. Clearly we've got some information missing, so let's enter the contact number. So this needs to be the contact number for the pilot on site. Okay. So once you're happy with the email, click send and it'll go off to the NOTAM team. You can also email them directly, the email's linked there. Okay, and then again, there is a disclaimer. So the NOTAM data is refreshed about 4 times a day throughout the day, direct from NATS AIS, but I can't guarantee the accuracy. So I always recommend that you make a final check directly on NATS, and also read the NOTAM guidance document to make sure that you're familiar with the meaning of the notices. It's already well reading them and including them in the job pack, but you need to understand what they mean and what the impact of them is on your jobs. So the next section is the site plan. This will allow you to draw a map of your flight and understand for the first time probably in more detail about what your site looks like and what potential hazards you might have that you need to mitigate. So you can see the map has several circles drawn on it. These represent the 50-meter radius around your location, as well as the 150, and then wider out we have the 500-meter maximum flight distance. So 50 meters and 150 meters. What you're able to do here is draw on the map to indicate what you intend to do when you get on site. So let's assume that's the client's premises. So you can select a takeoff and landing point. Let's put it there. And when I do that, you'll notice that an orange circle appears. That's the 30-meter takeoff and landing point safety zone. Let's say we're just going to film the customer's premises. So we can draw the flight area pretty accurately. Okay, so we've drawn the area we're likely to fly the drone in. We can place the pilot. We'll stay there. And then we're going to have a couple of observers to ensure the safety of road users here and ensure people keep out of that particular car park. And then we'll have a final observer at the car park entrance to prevent any ingress. Okay, so we now have a representation of the flight area and our plan in terms of where the flight will be and where we're going to put safety marshals. If we want to remove any of the items, so we can click on the bin and click the person that we want to get rid of, clear that. Let's put him back, but this time a bit further out. We can also edit. So you can see when I've clicked on the edit icon, everything's become movable. So let's move the pilot slightly and say we're going to change the flight area slightly too. Click save. And all these changes are saved back to the database immediately. So as soon as you refresh the page, you'll see this same diagram. You can come back and edit it at any point. There's a key at the bottom, and then you have an area to enter notes if you need to explain why the plan is as it is. There are a number of links at the bottom that will help you. So you might need to check AIS, Sky Vector, Crown Estates, and so on for this particular area. If I zoom right out of the map, you'll see that the map does still include the FRZs and so on. So you would know if you were close by that FRZ, it would be shown on the map. Again, if we press print, we'll get a nicely formatted version of that map. Okay, so that's the site plan. And then finally, we've got loading checklist. First thing to point out is the little icon there is red. That's the same for all the checklists in here. And the reason it's red is because we haven't started it. What you'll see is as you work your way through the checklist and check things off, then the checked item will turn green, the icon will turn yellow, or amber rather, and the percentage complete number will reflect how far you are through the form. So the checklist is fairly straightforward around your ops manual, waivers, SUAs, so on and so forth. Everything that you need to think about, making sure that you've checked off before you set off for the job. And this will include, of course, important things like weather meters, fire extinguishers, PPE, and everything else. Okay, so I've run through and checked off all the items, and you can see once everything's complete, it'll mark as complete and the icon will turn green. Once again, you can print that checklist off and you'll get a nicely formatted printable view or savable view. Okay, so that's the pre-deployment section complete. The next section is on-site, and this includes things like the risk assessment, on-site survey, and various checklists. So let's have a look at the risk assessment first. When you expand that, you'll notice straight away that it pre-populates with a number of standard risks with mitigation also listed. So these are editable. You can change these if you want, and you don't have to use them at all, so you can delete any of these if you don't think they're suitable for your use case. Okay, so just delete a couple. The other thing you'll notice is that the initial risk and final risk aren't populated. So this is deliberate. It's to ensure that you assess the risk appropriately for your job and select the correct classification. So the risk, probability, and severity are listed. This is all combinations of probability and severity with the appropriate code next to them. Rather than write it or display it in full, it will show the shortcode, the 4-character shortcode in the table. So select the initial risk. So you can see that's come up with an amber color. So once we've checked our NOTAMS, ensured and spoken to ATC, for example, then we know that this is going to be extremely improbable with a minor impact. So that'll be a green rating in terms of risk. So you'd go through and assess the risk for your particular job and assign the appropriate risk scores for the initial risk and then the final risk following mitigation. If you're in any doubt about the risk definitions, then clicking on the link at the bottom left will open a window that provides definitions and the color coding, which corresponds to the CAA standard risk matrix. Whatever you enter in here will comply with their requirements in terms of risk assessment. Okay, so we run through and set the initial risk and final risk for each of those, and then you would, under normal circumstances, add your own risk assessments as well for your, let's say, for your particular job circumstances. So just click Add Row, then you can enter the text, and then you're good to go. Okay, and again, you can print this separately if you so wish. Okay, so that's it for risk assessment. So the next section is on-site survey. This will ask you for meteorological data and a site safety assessment. You can also, of course, while you're on site, add to the risk assessment if need be. So enter the wind speed, the ambient temperature, and cloud cover. If you're unsure of the cloud types, there is, because who can remember those, right? There is an image that will help you with that. So let's say it's a cirrus, nice sunny day today. Okay, and then you can add a brief summary of the weather. Then site safety, you can confirm landowner permission. You can confirm whether or not you've spoken to ATC if necessary, and so on and so forth. Primary TOLP, secondary TOLP. So just enter some information as you feel appropriate to explain your approach to making the flight as safe as it possibly can be. Okay, so once you've filled in the form, that's it for the on-site survey. Again, pointed out once more, you can print that section if needed. And again, in this section, as in previous, you can see a character count of the 400 that's available in each of the fields. Okay, so on-site survey done. The next 4 sections are all about checklists. So these run through your initial on-site assessment. So you would review your planning docs, carry out a site survey, as we've just done, brief the client if necessary, if they're on site, as well as the occupants of the buildings if you're going to be preventing egress or ingress to an area of your flight area. Take off a landing point, communications, so test and confirm the two-way radios are working if you're using them, on-site risk assessment, which we've done, brief your marshals, assistants, necessary, gain waiver and permissions from neighbours and so on, if need be, and then make sure that your assistants are in place. Good, on-site checklist complete. Move on to the pre-flight check. So this is all about making sure the kit is flight worthy and safe. So obviously you just run through that in the same way as you just run through the other checklists. It's pretty comprehensive. Okay, so once you've checked everything again, you'll see that rug status changes screen as it did for the on-site. And then takeoff checklist. So call clear, check controls, record the takeoff time, establish tape hover, and start mission. Okay, so you'd complete your flight, your mission, and then there's the landing checklist. So check landing area clear, weather check, record landing time, advise your assistants that you're about to land, and carry out the landing. Okay, so that's it for on-site. So now we move on to post-flight. So again, the first thing here is checklist. So we want to make sure that everything's powered down, everything's recorded correctly. Take the battery out, make sure there's no damage, leaks and bulges and so on. Make sure there's no damage to the SUA itself. Power it down, power down the iPad, store the battery safely, remove and check the propellers and pack everything away as per the loading checklist. That's the final checklist. So then we have the ability to log the flight. You'll see it's already pre-populated the first row with the pilot for this particular job and the drone that was in use. So we just select the start time, 15, and it calculates the total for you, and you have the ability to add notes if need be. Let's add a second flight to 35. Again, adds everything up for you. Add notes if you want to. And that's it. There'll be a running total at the bottom, so we know 30 minutes of flying for this job. And that's it for flight log, simple as that. And then finally, you have the opportunity, if you want to, again, it's not mandatory. None of the forms are mandatory. It's entirely up to you. But you can draw a map of your flight. If you so desire. And let's do the second flight. So again, from there, this time we flew straight across the middle and back down to there. Okay, so that'll just keep a rough, I mean it's only a rough record, but it gives you an indication of what sort of flight path you flew for this particular job. Again, you can add notes if you want to. Okay, so that's it for post-flight. And then the final section is financials. I'll cover that in a separate video about quoting for jobs and then sending or producing and sending invoices. So that about covers managing a job. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.